Welcome to Wild Crone Wisdom podcast with your host Vinutha Mohan. In this episode, we discuss the need to find your voice, speak up, and set boundaries. As Glennon Doyle points out, only you can forge the life you want, and it will cost you everything. Have you ever felt silenced, like the world has muted your voice, and you're left tiptoeing around your truth? Today, I want to share a story that holds a powerful lesson, one that might just remind you of your right to speak up, stand tall, and be heard. Once upon a time, in the jungles of India, there lived a venomous king cobra. He was so vicious that he terrorized the people in the nearby villages as well as travelers crossing the jungle. Slowly, no one dared to cross the jungle for fear of being killed by the cobra. One day, a sage came to the village on the outskirts of this jungle and announced that he intended to cross the jungle the next day. The villagers were alarmed and warned him about the venomous snake and dissuaded him from crossing the jungle. The sadhu reassured them that the animals did not harm him since he knew how to calm their aggression and that no harm would befall him. The next day, the sage began his journey. Deep in the jungle, the cobra appeared, its dark hood rising, fangs glistening, ready to strike. The snake was in its most fearsome form, poised to attack. The sadhu then spoke to the snake in his kindest, softest voice and asked why he was hurting so many people and spreading such fear. The snake was shocked. No one had asked him that. He said that it was his nature to bite and kill and that he couldn't help himself. The sage then offered to work with the cobra to quell his thirst for evil and to teach him to calm his mind. Moved by the sage's love, the cobra agreed. The sadhu then taught him to chant a mantra and a few tips on how to meditate on it. He then promised the snake that he would be back in 1 year to check on his student's progress and advised him to strictly follow his instructions with diligence. The snake was an excellent student. He proceeded to follow his guru's instructions and started chanting and meditating. Slowly, he lost all interest in hunting and killing and was filled with a divine peace. He spent hours lying still and deeply engrossed in chanting the mantra. One day, a few village kids were playing near the jungle and their ball got lost in the bushes. Although terrified of the snake, the rambunctious boys decided to brave the snake and go in search of their ball. When they managed to find the ball, they noticed that the infamous king cobra was lying still near the ball. The boys stood frozen in fear, certain that they would be bitten to death. But after standing there for a while, they noticed that nothing happened. The snake hardly budged. Retrieving the ball quickly, the boys, being young, decided to check if the snake was asleep. So they gently poked the snake, but there was no reaction. Soon, the boys realized that the snake had somehow lost its appetite for a fight. Angry now, they pelted it with stones and beat the snake to a pulp with their sticks. The snake neither moved nor retaliated. Certain that they had beaten it to its death, the boys ran home. Almost lifeless, the snake somehow managed to crawl back into its pit and lay there, barely alive. Months passed. The snake could barely move. It survived on a few berries and leaves that had fallen nearby. It was now barely alive. Not having the strength to hunt, it had lost so much weight and was shriveled up. However, it never stopped meditating and praying. A year passed by, and the sadhu, as promised, once again visited the village. He inquired about the snake to the villagers, and they reported with relief that miraculously the snake had stopped its attack and that some boys had managed to kill it. The sadhu was shocked. He was in disbelief. He knew that the snake was not dead, as his mantra would somehow protected it. He proceeded to go looking for his disciple in the jungle. The sadhu roamed the jungle, calling out the cobra's name again and again. Finally, the snake heard his guru's voice and managed to find the strength to crawl out of his pit and meekly greeted his master. The sadhu was shocked at the plight of the poor cobra. He inquired about what happened and why he was reduced to this pitiable state. The snake could barely remember the events. So engrossed was he in his meditative practice that he held no contempt for the boys, nor thoughts of revenge. Finally, he managed to recollect the events that took place and recounted it to his master. The sadhu was shocked. He addressed his student with sadness. You fool! I only told you not to bite. I never told you not to hiss. It is okay to hiss. It's the venom that kills. This is one of my favorite parables, and I've very often shared the story with many clients, especially the ones who have been culturally conditioned to not use their voice. In my work with clients, especially with many women, I find that they have been conditioned by their culture, religion, families, society to not use their voice, to not be seen, not be heard, to tolerate injustice, abuse, neglect, and suffering. Many cultures glorify such tolerance and martyrdom as a sign of spiritual maturity and living by the religious doctrines. I find that these are tricks and myths used by a patriarchal world to prevent women from finding and using their voice. I remind them that it is important to hiss in order to protect ourselves. Here's the truth: you must learn to hiss. Hiss when you feel discriminated against. Hiss when you get paid less because of your skin color, gender, religion, country of origin, and so on. Hiss when your voice is dismissed or when you're told to dim your light because it shines too brightly for others to handle. Hiss when you are shamed for your body size, your mothering skills, for your productivity, for wanting to rest, for being a stay at home mom, for wanting to have a successful career. Hiss when you're taunted for feeling too much, feeling too little, for caring about social justice, for not caring enough, for marching, not marching. Hiss when you're blamed for staying in your marriage after a betrayal or for leaving your marriage because you feel that you are done. Hiss when you're made to feel guilty for not mothering enough, for smothering too much, for choosing to not have children, for wanting to get a facelift, for not coloring your hair, for spending too much on beauty products. Hiss when you're accused of being selfish, for being too selfless, for having a self, period. It is your birthright to love yourself, to protect yourself, and to live out your unique gifts in your own unique way. Remember, it is not the hiss that kills, it is the venom. There is a life meant for you that is truer than the one you're living. But in order to have it, you will have to forge it yourself. You will have to create on the outside what you are imagining on the inside. Only you can bring it forth, and it will cost you everything. Glennon Doyle in Untamed. So I ask you, where in your life are you staying silent when you should be hissing? Where are you holding back when you should be standing up for yourself? Learn to hiss because only you can defend your truth. And It is the hiss, not the bite, that will remind the world you are here. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Wild Crone Wisdom with your host Vinutha Mohan. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist from the Bay Area, California, specializing in trauma and attachment repair. I'm also a certified EMDR specialist and a certified shamanic practitioner. In this podcast series, we delve into the journey of our spiritual essence having a human experience. While many social scientists study human emotions, thoughts, and behaviors, and others explore transcendental experiences, few bridge the gap to help embody the spiritual wisdom in everyday life. I call this the psycho spiritual path. Through this podcast, I hope to share bite sized practical insights for navigating life as an empowered sovereign being. If you found this episode valuable, we'd greatly appreciate your support. Please consider rating, reviewing, commenting, and subscribing on your podcast platform to help us reach a wider audience. You can explore more of my writings on Medium by following the link in the show notes. We'd also love to hear about your experience, so feel free to share your thoughts with us at Wild Crone Wisdom Podcast at gmail.com. Thank you for being part of our journey. Please be advised the information provided in the Wild Crone Wisdom podcast is intended for general information purposes only. Vinutha Mohan is a licensed therapist and healer. However, the content shared in this podcast does not replace or constitute professional advice, therapy, or counseling. It is essential to consult with a qualified mental health professional for personalized guidance regarding your unique circumstances. Thank you.